my name is Jessica Wampler, and I am here today to present to you my final portfolio presentation for my principal license. For an overview of what I'm going to cover today, I'm going to talk about who I am as an educator and a leader, my intentional equity leadership platform, evidence of my growth throughout my practicum and experience as a student at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and also my immediate and long-term goals. So to start off with, as I stated before, my name is Jessica Wampler. As far as my path to education, my inspiration originally started as just loving literature. I took a non-traditional route to becoming a teacher. I went to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities to get an English bachelor's degree. And while I was there, I realized that as much as I love literature and reading, and my plans to be an editor, I actually loved working with students and children more. I had the opportunity to volunteer with some students and realized that that is where really my passion was. So I decided to finish up my bachelor's degree at the University of Minnesota, and then I graduated and came back to Green Bay, and I went to the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay to get my teacher licensing in English and in history. That leads me to my current role. Right now, I'm currently a teacher. I'm going into my 8th year as an English teacher at Pulaski Community High School. I've done all 8 years or 7 years at the same school. I really love being in the classroom, and I love seeing students progress or open up in ways that they haven't before. I'm very passionate about being involved and helping develop a strong climate and culture at my school. I'm on a lot of different committees, a part of our guiding coalition, which we'll talk a little bit about more later. I'm a coach for 6th grade soccer, and I co-advise student council. Key influences on my leadership was both as a teacher leader and a future administrator. An emerging leader have been my work throughout this program, learning how to be a leader for intentional equity, learning about the inequities and marginalization that occurs in the education system, and breaking down those barriers that do exist in our current districts and in our current classrooms. Additionally, as a teacher in a PLC school, I have seen firsthand how critical it is to keep lines of communication open and clear to better improve student learning. The next thing I'm going to talk about is my intentional equity leadership platform. So there's really 3 components that I see helping to make my intentional equity leadership platform a reality that I can kind of live and breathe as a leader. And that is my philosophy statement, my equity and leadership principles, and finally an action plan. So my philosophy statement is, I believe in leading for equity, basing all of my decisions on research-based practices and building a foundation of collective teacher efficacy to improve instruction. That ties together with my core equity principles, many of which I took from Futura and Capper, which are eliminating inequities, begins with ourselves. We have to kind of know and educate ourselves before we can go out and educate other people. So it's important that we assess our current reality before we try to fix any systemic problems. I believe that students have to be proportionally represented in the core of teaching and learning. We shouldn't be tracking. We should not be segregating our students within our classrooms or within our schools. I believe that it is our responsibility to prevent student failure. It's the teacher's responsibility. We're not looking at outside influences. We're only looking at what we can control, and that is our classroom and how we present ourselves in front of our students. And finally, high quality grade level access to curriculum is essential. So all students have and deserve the right to high quality education, and that is, again, our responsibility. So that leads me to my leadership principles. I have 6 of those that I think really kind of serve as a foundation. They tie together with the core equity principles to kind of make my base of where I would like to kind of start and grow in each of these areas as an emerging leader. That is focused above all else on equity and developing as a leader the collective equity capacity of all the educators in my building, starting with myself first. Making adjustments to instructional practices done on data. So I want to be very data driven, make sure I have all of the information in front of me before I make any decisions. I believe in providing relevant professional development from experts, truly improving and growing my teachers' with professional development that is relevant to them and helpful for them, making sure that my district and my building doesn't have a million different initiatives. We really kind of focus on one thing and go from there and kind of build that foundation and master and be proficient before moving on. I believe in building up a high collective efficacy in my students. So that is that belief that the faculty can make a positive contribution to student learning, and that is having my teachers really believe in themselves. I believe that's really important as a leader to build up that collective efficacy in my staff. As I stated before, I'm a big believer in collaboration. I believe that providing that time for our staff to collaborate on lessons, collaborate over professional development, and kind of work together really helps our teachers improve their curriculum and is what's best for children. And ultimately, I believe that my role as a leader when supervising and when evaluating my teachers is to see it as more of a collaborative supervision. So like Glickman states, a supervisor must hold the same role to a teacher that the teacher holds to a student. So a mentor, inspirer, and a facilitator of learning. So not there to scare my staff, not there to be intimidating, but rather to work on areas of growth and help coaching them up in a collaborative way. Finally, that leads me to my leadership action plan. These are just 5 things that I think I would really focus on, when, I got my boots on the ground, my first couple days as an educator, and my first year as a principal. The first thing I would focus on is really being present in the school building, so that we know that the teacher's perceptions of administration is significantly related to teacher retention. So really being present in my building, being there for my teachers, being visible, and showing them that I show up every day. Working on diagnosing issues and educating our staff, assessing our current reality and using that data to kind of find out where we are at, where are there gaps in our knowledge that need to be filled in. Working on improving the quality curriculum and instruction, implementing what Aaron Berger called a co-plan to co-serve model, really working together, having our special education teachers at the table, having our at-risk teachers, having our PBL staff really all at the table so that we can all co-serve our students together, and dismantling those practices of tracking and ability grouping. I would focus on teacher growth rather than compliance and really help build the capacity, like Aguilar said, build the capacity of others by facilitating their learning. So really working together with my staff to learn and to grow in the best practices and ways to serve our students. And then finally, and really kind of the overarching step here is working on improving that school culture. So building that culture of academic optimism that Hoyen Miskell, our favorite authors, talked about, making sure we have that faculty trust, making sure we have that high level of collective efficacy in our school so that we have that high level and that culture of academic optimism. And finally, or not finally, second to last, I'm going to talk about my evidence of growth. So throughout the course of my practicum, one of the things that I was most significantly involved in was my role as a member of the Guiding Coalition, which is a leadership team that was started this past year at my school. I believe that my involvement in the Guiding Coalition strongly connects to Standard 1, which is mission, vision, and core values, and also ALFI Principle 6, which is learning from the process and applying. So throughout our many meetings throughout the year, the Guiding Coalition discussed revising Pulaski High School's mission and vision. We eventually shared our revised statement with the staff and produced posters with the new mission and vision statement for every classroom. Additionally, these agendas, which is what this is a screenshot of our norms and our 4 critical questions of the PLC, our agendas really reflect open communication, kind of evaluating all issues. We really made an effort to listen to our staff. We surveyed the staff on building consensus, talking about what barriers there were to our students being high-level achievers in the classroom. What barriers do teachers feel like exist in the classroom and in the building right now that we as a leadership team can start to tackle and break down? And kind of evaluated that data, and moving forward into next year are really working on hammering out and building that foundation of behavioral tier 1 and tier 2 interventions so that we can help support our teachers in the classroom. Overall, I really think that this artifact is evidence of the preparation, communication, an execution of a goal with the leadership team. I know that as a future leader, it's going to be super critical for me to engage in crucial conversations, to deepen my relationship with staff as individuals, and to set and reach goals to help our students improve. And I believe that these agendas of the Guiding Coalition, our team norms, and kind of the work that we did throughout the year are really a reflection of hard work and a concentrated effort to improve school climate and school culture all around student success. I believe that continuing to have tough conversations and push past what always has been done to what needs to be done will be the foundation to my success as a leader in my district. My second artifact here is my teacher observation, my summative response. So I believe that the standard that applies best to this artifact is Standard 4, Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, and also ALFI Principle 3, which is the Disrupting Systems of Inequity. So I know that as an educational leader, a principal is expected to develop and support intellectually rigorous systems of curriculum instruction and assessment that all work together to promote each student's academic success. So that's the basic understanding of the standard. I believe that this artifact is a summation of my observations of a veteran teacher named Joan Brylski at my school. This artifact is evidence of ALFI Principle 3 as well, because when conducting pre-conference, post-conference, and observation of Mrs. Brylski, we had many conversations about curriculum and assessment, as well as around equitable practices in the classroom. Mrs. Brylski's classrooms that I observed were both regular education classrooms that did have students with disabilities in the classroom. We had many conversations about the inequities that currently exist in her classroom and in our building at large that are out of our control largely as teachers. One of that being that the world history classes at Pulaski are not currently supported by a special education teacher, despite having those supports in all other core areas. So this inequity really pushed Mrs. Brylski in our conversations to develop the capacity of working with and guiding students with disabilities despite not having a trained professional to help her. Having high expectations, one-on-one conferences with students, and continuous check-ins with students throughout her lessons that I observed really helped her disrupt those inequities and begin to implement practices in her classroom that allowed her to begin to interrupt this system. In fact, next year, they are actually, they advocated for and received a teacher who will be a special ed teacher supporting in that classroom. That's an inequity that hopefully that barrier will begin to kind of break down over the next couple of years as we kind of have that foundation. This observation for me, the observations in general, were so critical. The knowledge of curriculum instruction and assessment are essential, I know, to being a successful leader. Outside of just observations, as a future principal, I will be involved in professional learning communities with my teachers and teams, where I will need to facilitate tough conversations around inequities in our practices and growth opportunities. Having a deep understanding of the history of marginalization, as well as being up to date on best practices in the curriculum, will allow me to facilitate these conversations with teachers who have vastly different experiences than I do. Being able to observe a veteran teacher in her last year and be able to give her feedback and really break down areas of growth and areas of strengths using the Danielson rubric was extremely helpful as a upcoming leader. I think that actually partaking in this observation, the pre-post conference, and writing up my summative response was one of the most valuable things I probably did throughout my entire practicum, as it was really hands-on experience that will be very relevant in my job moving forward as a leader. And finally, I want to talk just briefly about my immediate and long-term goals. So right now, I really want to focus on just continuous education and strengthening my proficiency as a teacher and a teacher leader. Really focusing on continuing to educate myself on issues of inequity in my district and beyond, staying up to date in current literature, best practices, and really just continuously improving my practice as an English teacher. I'm not at this moment ready to move out of the classroom. I would like to see myself moving into more of a teacher leader position as I come up into almost a decade in the classroom. I think that I've got the experience now to really make those steps as I've definitely transitioned out of the new teacher phase. In addition, once I'm ready to move or to look outside of the classroom. I can see myself being more of an instructional coach, much like Elena Aguilar talked about in her book, because I really do view that supervision process as one that's not a mechanism to fix people, but that helps build the capacity, okay, of our teachers. Every mistake that's made by a student is an opportunity for learning. And I want to take that same approach with the adults that I work with instead of coaching people out of the profession, more so coaching them up and having them improve their practice and return to the classroom more confident, more successful in helping their teachers. So while I'm not quite sure what my next steps are, I know that no matter where I am, I will continue to educate myself and continue to be a leader. And I'm very thankful for having this program to kind of help give me the foundation and skills to move on into the next steps of my career. Thank you guys very much for listening. You can see my next slide if you would like to check out my references. Otherwise, I will kind of open the floor for any questions that we have at this moment.